So let's start. Let me just introduce to you Ian, a fascinating man. I had an opportunity to be in the holding room with him just to chat a little bit. It's amazing what he has done in life. And I must thank you, Dave. You suggested that we just get Ian here. And I had an opportunity to go and visit him at his office. And he told me the story. I said, Ian, you must come and tell it to ULP mentees. And Ian has been described as a serial entrepreneur. His working career is lined with a number of entrepreneurial startup businesses. And these include a retail chain of Supermart, was sold to Edcom. So he starts businesses and he sells them. A record company called Priority Records was sold to Jive Records of the UK. Race relations, customer service consultancy, Labor Link, which consulted to public companies from 1991 to 1997. And now a national chain of beauty salons called Sobe. He'll tell you more what he's doing with it now. He launched Sobe, by the way. There's Richard. Richard, that's good. Can you clap hands for Richard? I was telling Ian about it. Richard runs he cuts my hair. And every Sunday he cuts my hair. Sorry, I divert a little bit. But I'm glad he's here. And he was in a salon, and then from there, the salon closed down. And then he phoned me one day. He says, "Where are you?" I said, "Richard, I need you." And he started an Uber of her. He came to my house and cut my hair. Right now, he's got so many customers that he comes to your home. So it's an Uber of salon. So next time you want any cutting of hair and you want the conveniences of your home, Richard, stand up, man. And I told him that, Richard, you can't be cutting hairs until you're 50. So you got to come here and listen to a man who turned your business into a mega business so that you can also be wealthy one day. So that is why he's here. Let's come back. He launched Sobe chain of beauty salons in 2005. The business, let me correct you because he corrected me at the holding room. It's 190 outlets now. So they're growing. Every shopping center you find has got a Sobe. I thought Sobe is ice cream until my daughters clapped me and said, "Hey, Dad, don't embarrass us, you know." Of which 180 now are franchised. This, guys, is from 2005. This is an amazing record rolling out like that. A brand has grown in reputation. Brand extensions have developed. Beauty Therapy Institute for the education of beauty therapists. When I was at his offices, he told me, I think about 1,000 young ladies go through his, so it's a job creation machine. It's an amazingly job creation machine, which is what we need in this country. We need it very much. Sobe Dry Bar, an express hair salon, Sobe Man. Richard, you better get close to this man. All right? See whether maybe you can end up getting your own Sobe Man. A men's grooming salon, Candy and Company, and an ethnic hair salon. The long-term plan is to become an umbrella brand that caters for the needs of women and men across various services. Sobe is a family business. Great. Senior managers are Ian's children, Brent, Jade, Courtney, and his niece, Deborah. This is great family businesses. Raymond Ackerman has also run a family business and is a big Pick and Pay. The exceptions are Rudy and Rudolph and Robin Zinman. That's one of our values here, is to promote family. He's written books, by the way. to inform you to bring these books so that we can sell them here. But if you need it, where's Tsepo? Tsepo. There's Tsepo standing there. Just look at him. If you need a book, just write your name. Tsepo will make sure you contact and get them. Get That Feeling, published by Penguin in August 2014. It tells the story of his lifelong entrepreneurial journey, which started when he was 22 years old. That's a great story. And he's busy writing his second book, The Soul of Sober, describes the culture that has been established in the group, and it will be published this year. We're looking forward to it. When you publish it, please tell us, and we'll get copies for people who need them here at ULP. So ladies and gentlemen, without any waste of time, let's welcome Ian. Give him a round of applause.
Right, so my lifelong entrepreneurial journey has led me into the beauty industry, where I often get asked what it's like to be a man in a woman's world. It's been cool. It's been very cool. It's been fun and exciting and stimulating and highly educational, because before all of this, I thought that a Brazilian was a person who lived in Brazil. and that Hollywood was a place they made movies. Now I know they actually bikini waxes, which is fine, but now I get a bit confused sometimes, because one of the things that we offer in our store is a 3/4 leg wax. And the mind is always boggled as to which quarter they leave out. I have nightmares of people leaving our salons with hairy ankles and stuff. So, but nevertheless, let's go back to the beginning. Born in 1953 in a place called Vanderbijl Park. People say, why were you born there? That's a good question. So I thought, well, I'll come up with an answer, because I wanted to be close to my mother. She was there. She was there at the time, and I thought, well, that's a cool place to be. Let me go and be born there. So I was born in Vanderbijl Park, and then my father was actually one of the original founders of Russell Company and Joshua Dorr. You know Joshua Dorr? He was one of those guys, you know, you got an uncle in the furniture business, Joshua Dorr. That one there. So he then left Vanderbijl Park when I was about 4 years old, and we came to Johannesburg, and they sent me off to a Jewish school, which is fine. But the problem with going to a Jewish school is that there are only Jews there. And you don't get to meet anyone else. You don't get to meet anyone of a different language or race or culture or creed. And so we just sort of grew up in this sort of bubble of Judaism there. And what happens when you do that is you tend to start believing that we, the Jews, were the chosen people of God, which is also cool. Why? Who wouldn't want to be chosen by God? I mean, really. So it's very special. And because you're young and naive and you're a bit silly, you believe that kind of stuff, and you grow up believing it, and there's a sense of superiority that comes out of that school. And you know, that's what I looked like when I left school. And I'm not quite sure that he believed I was the chosen one at that time. I don't know, God was too happy with his choice at that stage. But nevertheless, a couple of weeks later, I looked like that, and I went into the Air Force, and I spent 1 year there doing my compulsory, military service. We had to, as whites, we had to go to the Army or the Air Force. And I walked into the Army thinking that I had been chosen by God. And I can tell you there, I met another group of people for the first time, white Afrikaans-speaking males who were running the place. And I can tell you for sure they didn't think so. They didn't agree that I had been chosen by God. Excuse my language here, but one of the sergeants at the time said, as far as he was concerned, Jews were lower than shark shit. Now, that's about 45 years ago, and I'm still trying to work out if there's anything at all lower than shark shit. And I don't think there is. So there was a hell of a discrepancy. I mean, I came in thinking I was chosen by God, and the next day I was shark shit. So that was a hell of a fall from grace, from hero to zero. And then I actually learned something very important there. Sorry, I'm just going to go back quickly. Because what they told me that they were chosen by God. And they had been chosen. And I'm sure those of you that, that have learned South African history, as I did at the time, you will notice that the Afrikaans people who were practicing apartheid were convinced that this was verified by God and it was all part of a religious thing. So they said they were chosen by God, and that's quite a dilemma. I was 17 years old, and it sort of forced me to ask some quite difficult questions, like, who's doing the choosing here? And why is he so confused? He doesn't know who he's choosing anymore. It's us and them, and who knows who else. So I learned a very powerful lesson at that time, that there's no one group superior or inferior to another. We're all just different, and the sooner we learn to respect and tolerate our differences, the better off our country would be. And I've kept that in my heart ever since. Then I'm off to Wits University, where I very successfully dropped out. After 2 years, boom, 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 and I had to leave, and then so I became a singer, and I used to sing there in a cocktail bar in Berea, in Johannesburg in 1974. I then went to work for the music industry, the Gallo Record Company, and I was there for about 18 months, and it's about the only time in my life that I've actually worked for someone else. So that was an interesting time. And then about 18 months in, I had a conversation with my older brother. He came back from America, and he said that he had seen this business in the States called Kmart. And it was this huge, big, sort of departmental discount store. And he said, you know what, we have to open this thing in South Africa. We need a Kmart here, and we're going to aim it at the black market, and we're going to do mass business, and it'll be a discount division. And I happened to be 22 years old at the time, and I'm kind of freshly dropped out of university, so I didn't know much about anything. So I said, well, that's a great idea, but who's going to run it? And he pointed at me, and he said, you're going to run it. So I said, well, that's not so cool. I mean, what do I know about business? What do I know about departmental discount stores, especially big ones? And what do I know about management? And what do I know about the black market? I mean, I knew nothing. So I decided, I said what most young, naive boys would say, sure, let's do this thing. So we did it. And about 6 months later, we were ready to launch Kmart in South Africa. One of the problems, however, was I didn't know much about trademarks and stuff like that. So we just used the name Kmart. Seemed like a good idea. It worked for them, So and to make matters worse, we used their logo as well. It was So that was a bit of an oopsie, but anyway, we carried on, and we were about to launch it in the middle of June 1976. And of course, we all know what happened in the middle of June 1976. We had the Soweto uprisings, and we had to delay the opening of the store for a couple of weeks. And eventually, we opened on the 1st of July, 1976. And they're my two brothers with me on either side. And at the time, you know, there was a lot of police stuff going on and these big hippos and vans, and they were watching for riots all over the place. So we got, they said to me, listen, we've got to advertise very cheap prices. And I knew nothing about gross profits and pricing. I thought, okay, well, I'll cut the prices. So I cut the shit out of the prices. I mean, it was hectic. I tell you, people came from KwaZulu-Natal. I mean, it was crazy. There were thousands of people there. The police arrived en masse. They thought it was another riot. So we had a big problem there. They came with the dogs, and it took them quite a while, to convince them that this was not a riot. It was actually a store opening. And eventually they got it right, and there you can see the queues that went around the block for about 3 or 4 days like that. And of course we didn't have enough stock, and it was just a complete disaster. But Kmart was born in quite a big way. So then the next thing is I'm 22 years old, and now I'm the manager of this store. Okay, all my customers are black and all my staff are black. I'm the only white guy that there is. Spot the white boy. Spot the white boy. There I was, trying to run a business, and really I had no idea. I just didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know how to communicate with people. I didn't know how to lead people. So I just started loading boxes with everyone else, and it seemed like they accepted me as one of the workers, so it was good. So I didn't have to worry about managing people. I was just working with them, so it was all fine. So eventually one of the guys comes along. His name was Ralph Mamela. I'll never forget him. Unfortunately, he was murdered. Nobody knows how or what, about 5 years after that. But at the time, he came to me, he said, listen, I will help you to communicate with the people. So he became my mentor. And I was very excited about this, and I thought, okay, I'm going to promote him to be a senior supervisor, and all of these things happened. And this was now, about the time when the consumer boycotts were starting to happen in South Africa. And then one day, one of the staff comes running in and they say, listen, one of our people is on the corner handing out pamphlets promoting a consumer boycott of our store. Because we were white owned, of course. So I said, well, who was it? He said, Ralph. Ralph. My main man was outside the store promoting the boycott of our shop. So I called him in. I said, hey, man, what are you doing? I can't believe this. What have you done? And then he said to me, listen, I want to talk to you. He says, I really appreciate what you've done for me, Ian, and I'm enjoying working at Kmart. The problem is when I go home, at the end of the day, I get harassed by the police. I never know from one day to the next if I'm going to get arrested or my family or my friends are going to be arrested. And we can't live like this anymore. We just can't live like this. So unfortunately, for us, it's about freedom first and work second. And that was a really powerful thing for me. And there I learned my second lesson, that you cannot ignore the socio-political environment in which your employees are forced to live. And that was a very big lesson for me. And then I changed my whole style of management as a result of that. And then we moved forward. Haven't got time to get into the detail, but it was an interesting time. We then went ahead and became, I think, as far as I know, the first company in South Africa to have black shareholders and directors. Those were our two guys there, Carl Molokome on the left and Thomas Sitole. And we then, in fact, that picture was on the front page of the old World newspaper, and before it got banned in 1977 after the death of Steve Biko. So, because I loved music, we had a nice big record bar in Kmart, and it was really busy, you know, because I cut the prices by half. So everybody in town, I mean, we had a record, maybe some of the older people in the group will know a record called Woman to Woman by Shirley Brown. Yeah. You know that record? So it used to sell for $4.99 was the normal price, and I was selling it at $2.99. And the people went crazy. We really, they couldn't keep enough stock in the store. And one of the big hits at the time, one of the big artists at the time, you'll all know her, was Letta Mbulu. And she had a big album. And it just kind of turned out by sheer coincidence that my partner, Carl Molakomi, found out one day that Caiphus Semenya and Letta Mbulu were in Harare, Zimbabwe. Because they used to come out there every now and then so that their families could come up and visit them. And he said, would you like to go and meet them? And I said, I would love to meet them. I was so excited because I knew what a big star she was. So we went. So there we are sitting in the hotel room with Carl on the left and Caiphus on the right. And we hit it off, you know, very quickly. Caiphus and I became friends. And in no time, we had started a record company together. So I left Kmart and I went into the music business, and I got my brother to come and run the business, and there I was then in the music business, starting a new company completely. And so the first thing that we did was I flew to America to sign Letta Mbulu. There we are in her kitchen, signing the contract for our record company called Munjali Productions. And then we released these two albums on the Munjali label under Moonshine Records. I don't know if you recognize those two albums. Of course, Caiphus Semenya also had some big hits. This is 1982, for those of you that have lived that long. 1982, he had a great, great hit called Angelina. Remember Angelina? Angelina. Angelina, come on down. Do you remember that song? Yeah, it was a huge, huge hit. And we became, you know, we were on the map all of a sudden as a South African company releasing these expat musicians, which was very exciting. Then, of course, straight away, Hugh Masekela came to sign with us, and the phenomenal Soul Brothers. So within the first year or two, we had 4 major artists, and we became quite an exciting record company in South Africa, taking on the majors. So we had this guy called Stanley Nkosi. He was our promotions manager. And we used to drive around, him and I, around the country, trying to promote music in the record stores and going to the radio and stuff. And then one day, we were in a place called Middelburg out there in what is now in Mpumalanga. In those days, it was the sort of Eastern Transvaal. And we were looking for a place to have lunch, and we couldn't find a place to have lunch because they wouldn't take black people into the restaurants, which was really embarrassing and very awkward. And we went from one place to another. And eventually, out of desperation, we ended up in a kind of a roadhouse place where we could just sit in our car. So we thought no one's going to kick us out of our own car. So we sat there, it was all fine. And the guy comes up, the waiter comes up, and we place our order, and we order 2 hamburgers and 2 Cokes. Fine. Off he goes, he comes back. 2 hamburgers and 2 Cokes come back. But one of the hamburgers is on a plate, and the other one on a paper plate. One of the Cokes is in a glass, and the other one in a sort of half-torn polystyrene cup. So I was so embarrassed again. I thought, no, this is enough of this stuff. So I ate off the paper and the polystyrene, and I gave Stanley the plate and the glass. And he was much older than me, of course. much to the dismay of the owner of this establishment, who was so far right you had to send out a search party to find him. This was a serious racist, this guy. He was screaming, what are we going to do? We could actually see him shouting at his staff, how can we let this black man eat off the plate? And eventually it was just enough. It was enough. So we got out of the car, Stanley and I, both of us, and I was dressed as normal in my jeans and khakis. And that day he had a jacket and tie on. And he looked, he was quite a lot older than I, and we decided to reverse our roles. So I played the humble, rural African servant, and I went up to this guy there who was standing there behind the counter, and I said, "Nyabonga Baba." And he looked at me, no, this didn't look right. And then Stanley stepped up to the plate, and he straightened his tie, and pulled his jacket on, and he went up to the guy and he pointed his finger in his face. He said, "Don't you ever treat my white boy like that again." A true story. That's a true story. So anyway, I then went on, and we then formed a record company with a guy in the UK called Clive Calder. I'm not going to spend too much time on that. But we started to then get international music as well as our local acts. We started to release such people as Bob Marley, U2, Billy Ocean. We sold all of that music. And I was really enjoying this because I could fly around the world and go to these various labels, Arista Records based in New York, Jive Records in London, Island Records in London. And one year, I went to New York for a meeting with Arista Records, and they introduced this new young lady that they said was going to be the next biggest female superstar of the world. She was young at 19 years old. And we had heard that if you spend time in the music business, they all say this is going to be the next big thing. Anyway, they played the music and it was great. And then the guy said, well, she's waiting outside here, and maybe you guys would like to take a picture of the next female superstar. So when she walked in, we had no problem standing up and going to take a picture. She was a beautiful young girl. And there she was, Whitney Houston. So that was when she launched her career at 19 years old, and there I was with her new album. So it was an exciting time to meet people like that. And she did, as you know, become a superstar, and we distributed her music in South Africa. So then something interesting happened. My partner, Clive Calder, said to me, you know what, we can't record Masekela and Semenya and these people in South Africa. Obviously, they won't go to South Africa, but maybe we can do something in Gaborone, Botswana. So he bought a state-of-the-art recording studio. You can't see it, but it's on the right there. It's on the right there. The studio itself is the little house there in a place called the Woodpecker Inn, just outside Gaborone in Botswana. And so we set up a studio there. And the guys came. And they came, and there you go. Just excuse my short shorts there on the left. But the person on the right is Hugh Masekela. And the three other guys are the Soul Brothers. And the guy in the middle is a guy called Stuart Levine, who was the music producer for Hugh Masekela. So we did an album there called Techno Bush, which looked like that. Was the first album recorded in that studio. And then, unfortunately, what happened was about a couple of months after that thing, we started a new thing with Masekela. And what happened was that at the end of the day, every evening, we used to go to this guy's house. His name was George Pashley. And we used to have a few drinks. And I was still a bit young and naive. I didn't know who he was, him and his wife, Lindy. And they always seemed to have a lot of new people coming through, all the time that I'd never seen before. But there was no politics being discussed. It was just cool, listening to music, having a few drinks. And there I was, this white boy in the middle of all this. And it turns out that this was an ANC safe house in Cameroon. And there I was wandering around, drinking and having a whale of a time. But it had a very sad ending, because in June 1985, that was the house that was hit by the South African Defence Force, and George and Lindy and 6 others were killed in the house, and it was a place that we had been visiting. So it was really scary, and it was terrifying and shocking, and we lost some great friends. So we packed up the studio and we went back to Johannesburg. Sad ending to that exciting story. Then, at the time, I was still helping my brother out, and then a couple of guys came out of jail, and they said they wanted to come and work with us. One of them was a guy called Libon Mabaso. I don't know if you know that name. You know Libon. He was, at that stage, the leader of Azapo. And they came to us, and they heard that we were a little bit progressive, and he said he wanted a job. Because he was banned, politically banned. He couldn't go out and have any public gatherings, but he was allowed to work, and he came to us. And we were very happy to take him, and he became our dispatch manager. So during the day he was dispatching products, and at night he was plotting the downfall of the government. So an interesting time, and then through him and another guy that worked with us called Letsatsi Masala, I learned all about black consciousness and about Steve Biko, and that's when I got really embroiled in trying to understand South African politics and what was going on. So we changed a few things at Supermart, and I was helping out there, and we were dealing with race issues. And then I decided, you know what, it's working so well at Supermart. In fact, it became Supermart, by the way. We had to change our name because the Americans arrived en force, lots of lawyers with large files, and they came from America en masse, these guys. And they said, no, you can't use our name anymore. And this was after 12 years. 12 years of calling ourselves Kmart. I mean, I don't know how much time ago, but there's a little funny story there. So we got a Supermart, or Kmart at the time, as you know, it was in the middle of town, and it was all black customers. And these 2 white guys arrived in suits and walked in to the store. And, they stood out like a bull's balls. They just, you could see they weren't, in the right place. So the manager looked at these 2 guys very suspiciously, and one of them takes out a camera and starts taking pictures of the shop. And our manager, his name was Elias Seleke, and he got very upset. He ran up to them and said, you can't do that, why are you taking pictures here? So the one guy got such a fright that he ran out the shop, and Elias told the security, lock the doors. So we arrested 2 white lawyers from America. And he took them up to the office, and he sat them down, and he phoned me. I wasn't there. He said, listen, I got these 2 white lawyers here from America. What should I do with them? I said, let them go. Please. So anyway, we lost the case hopelessly, and we got fined another 2,000 Rand for illegal arrest. So it wasn't a great ending. And we had to change our name to Supermart. Some of you might remember Supermart. It then was sold later on and became Jetmart. So if you know Jetmart today, that was Supermart, which was Kmart. Okay, so So then I decided I wanted to get into race relations, and that was the time when my wife thought that I needed to see a doctor. She thought I'd completely lost the plot, and I was going to go into public companies and try and teach them how to deal with racism in the workplace. And I had no education, I had known nothing, and I came from a little place called Super something. They didn't know at all what happened or what this was about, so they just laughed me out of court, and I couldn't get in, but I was determined, and eventually it's a whole story, but the short of it is I started industrial theater, and I started to produce plays. It was the only way that I could get people to understand what was going on in the workplace, was to do these little plays. And they became very popular, and as a result of that, I got my first client, Murray and Roberts. And they then said to me that they got some subsidiaries, and if I could do this and I could make a difference in one of them, they would give me all their companies. So I was very excited. This was my opportunity. They sent me off to Brits, a very conservative area, as you know, and they said, right, the managing director there is an extreme AWB type kind of guy, and if you can get him right, the world is your oyster. So I said, right, here we go. So off I went, and I arrived there, and this guy kind of welcomed. I wouldn't call it a welcome. He greeted me. He didn't want me there. He knew why I was there, and he really didn't like what I was going to do in his company, and he made it very awkward for me. But anyway, he was showing me around the place, and then I come across the toilets there, and it's still, this is 1993, 1 year before the big election. And the toilets have got signs, whites, blacks. 1993. Okay, this is not the 60s or the 70s. In 1993, in Brits, these guys have got separated toilets. And canteens as well. They wouldn't eat together, and they were using separate toilet facilities. So I said, no, look, I can't work here. I mean, I've come here to deal with race relations. This is, no, until you actually take the signs down and you open up the whole place, I'm out of here. So he said, well, I'm not going to open it up. So I said, why not? He says, because there's no way you'll be able to control what goes on here if we open this thing up. So I said, well, fine, I'll go and tell Murray and Roberts that you just want to stay in the old South Africa whilst they move on. They said, no, you better not do that. He said, okay, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to open the toilets and I'm going to open the canteens, but when the trouble starts, then you better come from Joburg with your big mouth and see what to do here. So I said, okay, well, I'll give it my best shot. 2 days later, I get the call. He says, hey, you better get in your car now. And he sounded in a panic. He says, there's drama here, big drama. So I said, okay, I thought about maybe getting a bulletproof vest. But I said, okay, I'm in my car and I'm gone. And I get to the place, and outside, of course, all the black staff are toy-toying outside, singing. And so I'm thinking, oh, this is not good. So I drive in, they usher me through, they take me to the guy, he's in his office, he's pacing up and down. He says, look what you've done. I got people dancing in the street, and the factory is closed. There's nobody in the factory, and I don't know what we're going to do. We're losing thousands by the minute. So I said, I can see the black people in the street. Where are the whites? He says, they've gone home to pee. I said, what do you mean? He said, I told you we're going to have problems here. They go home to pee and they have lunch at home and they come back. I said, no, well, that's no good. So he said, what are you going to do now, big mouth? Seeing as you caused all the drama. So I said, I don't know. Maybe we should just get 2 groups of people. We get the black shop stewards, the white supervisors, get them into a room, and let me see if I can talk to them and try and reach some kind of solution. He says, okay, he'll try it. So a few hours later, we're sitting in this room with the two groups of people, and I say to them, and he introduces me as the guy who caused all the trouble. And I got some vicious looks from a few people there. But nevertheless, I start off and I say, right, let me ask the white supervisors first. What is the problem here? And they answer in Afrikaans. The one guy stands up. He says, there's no problem. I said, there is a problem. You guys are going home to the toilet. That's a problem. He said, no, no, no. He said, no, this whole new South Africa thing, it's about freedom of choice, right? So I said, yeah, it's freedom of choice. He said, well, that's fine. We choose to go home. I said, no, but that's not, I don't think that's what they meant. Anyway, I said to him, but why? The question really is, why are you going home? What is the problem? And then he just let loose, this guy. And it was quite amazing. I mean, he didn't pull any punches. He just said, you know what, these black people, they're like pigs. They're dirty. They're not really human. We can't eat with them. They're too loud. They're noisy. We just don't want to be with them. And I'm looking at the other guys who are sitting listening to this. And I'm thinking, somebody's going to die here today. And I hope it's not me. Ish. So I say to these guys, listen, would anybody like to respond? No, they're all sitting very quiet, very quiet. So I said, listen, please, we have to try and resolve this before the end of the day, because otherwise we're just going nowhere. After a while, one of the guys puts his hand up. He says, I'll talk. He says, but before I speak, I'd like to ask the managing director, of all the Murray and Roberts companies in the group, where do we rate in terms of our productivity? The MD says, last. We're the worst in the whole group. And the shop steward says, but do you know why? He says, no, I don't know why, because if I knew why, I would try and do something about it. He says, it's your lucky day, sir. Today you're going to find out why. He says, no, I'm very keen to hear, please, tell me. He says, well, you just heard how these guys talk to us and what they think of us. How do you think we feel? He says, you must be feeling bad. He says, yes, you're right, we feel very bad. But we can't respond to them in the same way as they talk to us, because we'd be fired just like that. So, but we have our own way of responding. So he says, what do you mean? What's your own way? He says, well, I've been working here for 5 years, and virtually every single day since I joined, we engage in some act of sabotage. What? Sabotage. We just sabotage your business every day. He said, what do you mean sabotage? He said, no, it's no problem. We break things. We break everything. We kick the machine, we put the screwdriver here, we stop the line, we pack the wrong things in the wrong boxes, and we send them to the wrong customers. We sabotage every day. And the guys go, what? But then he came with the coup de grace, this guy, the shop steward. He said, let me tell you something, sir. He said, if these people do not believe that we are fit enough human beings to eat with and to stand next to in the toilet, what makes them think we are fit enough human beings to work with? Wow, that was the power. That put the light on. And for me also, and then I realized right at that moment that this was the single biggest problem facing the South African workplace and South African productivity was racism in the workplace. But not many companies were willing to acknowledge that, and they didn't know how to deal with it, and they didn't want to deal with it because it was too sensitive and too difficult. So they just ignored it, or they swept it under the carpet and carried on. So anyway, we started working, and eventually we did end up working for about 15 different Murray and Roberts companies, and I did that for about 7 years of my life as a consultant, which was probably the most rewarding work I've ever done, because when you can, in your own small little way, if you can make a difference to the country in helping with the transformation, that was very stimulating and rewarding times. So I used to teach all the whites about what really happened in South African history. That was part of my program. And then we skip a little bit and we get to 2004. We had just sold, Edcon bought Supermart in 2002, and then they renamed it, they rebranded it to Jetmart. And I was looking for something to do, and I was lying on the massage table, having just a normal massage, and the beauty therapist that was doing it said to me, "Have you ever thought about the beauty industry?" This is now the beginning of 2004. So I said, "Are you joking? I mean, what, me? Look at this face." Beauty industry. I used to use Lux soap once or twice a week, so I really I wasn't a beauty guy at all. Anyway, she said, "Never mind that, go and have a look at the business." And I did. She said, there's a gap in the market. But I asked her, I said, "Is there a market in the gap?" And she said, "Well, I don't know, but go and find out for yourself." And I did, and I discovered that there were no beauty salon chains under one brand, one umbrella brand in South Africa at the time, other than a company called Dream Nails, which was focusing on nails only. And I thought, okay, well, let's start beauty salons and let's see if we can try and build some sort of a brand. So I started buying up a few of these independent stores. We bought up 6 of them with the money that we received from the Supermart sale, and we launched Sorbet in 2005. We also then subsequently launched the Dry Bar, and as Maurice was saying, Candy & Co. as well, the ethnic hair brand, and of course Sorbet Man, which is probably our fastest growing brand at the moment in 2014. A few stats: currently 190 stores, of which 182 are franchised, over 2,500 staff, over 275,000 treatments per month. So we do a fair number of treatments, and hopefully some of you are experiencing some of those. And it's quite remarkable that of the 275,000 treatments, 60% of them are nail treatments. I mean, it's remarkable. I don't know what it is with women and their nails, but there's something happening there. You also can't understand it, right? Yeah, okay. But there is something. I can tell you for sure it's not about men, right? No, it's not about men. I don't think nails attract men. So, I mean, in all the years that I've had my mates drinking with me around the braai, having a few beers, not once, ever, has any of them, when a beautiful woman walked past, said to me, "Hey man, did you see that beautiful set of nails?" So, what can I say? No. Did you see that French manicure? So anyway, whatever it is that women want to do with their nails and why it's so important to them, I'm sure they understand, and one day so will I. But in the meantime, it's wonderful, and then let them just keep doing it. It's fantastic. It's really very, very cool. So the other thing is 350,000 loyalty members, estimated annual group sales in South Africa to March 2018. Okay, that's a British figure, but it's about 800 million rand sales. And an average of 8 to 10 franchise applications per day at the moment. But the real kicker here is not so much what the store is and what it looks like and what it does, but what we call the soul of Sorbet. So that's about the culture, and hopefully this is where I can try and impart some stuff to you guys out there as entrepreneurs going forward in your lives. I truly believe that our single biggest competitive advantage at Sorbet has been our culture, has been the positive attitudes of our staff. And we have some amazing stories actually that actually represent that fact. One of them, very briefly, is a woman who had cancer. She had a strong relationship with her nail technician in one of our stores. She went for a scan, and she discovered after chemotherapy that she was clear, and she was very excited. And when she came out of the scan room, whatever that is, she told her husband, please do me a favor. Please go to Sorbet in Oaklands and tell Kenzie, the nail technician, that I'm okay. I mean, I had tears in my eyes when I heard that. And I thought, now, what is it at Sorbet that's happening that is creating these kind of relationships between our guests and our citizens? We call them citizens, our staff, because we call ourselves a community, not a company. So the important thing is, and I think this is something that you should all be thinking about, and I don't know if you've seen the TED Talk by a guy called Simon Sinek. This comes from him. Okay, this is from Simon Sinek. He's got this golden circle thing, and he explains that most companies know what they have to do and how they have to do it, but not all of them know why they are doing it. And if you don't know why you're doing it, then often what happens is you start to believe that you're doing it to make money. And there lies the mistake. Because you don't go into business to make money. The purpose of business is never about making money, because that is the result. It's not the purpose. You need to understand, what is the purpose of your business? What are you trying to achieve? And we then had to sit down and work this out, and we said it's about touching people's lives. Every single day, our beauty therapists, hairstylists, barbers, our nail technicians are touching people's lives. And often people look down on themselves, and they don't have a lot of pride in what they do. You know, I hear some of our people say, I'm only a nail technician. What does that mean, I'm only a nail technician? Well, I couldn't really do much else yet, so here I am doing nails. And it's repetitive, and it's a little bit boring, and I'm doing the same thing over and over again. I say, no, you're not doing the same thing over again, because every single time, it's a different guest sitting in front of you. It can never be the same thing. It's a different person's life that you are touching, that you are making feel good about themselves. And that is not a job anymore, it's a privilege. To be able to do that, to be able to go home at the end of the day, you know, and say, I touched 8 or 10 people's lives today. I made them feel good. I helped them with their self-confidence and their self-esteem, because if they look good, they feel good, and they go out there and they face the world with confidence. And I did that today. So we try and get people to understand and to see the bigger picture in terms of what that means. How are we touching people's lives? Well, we inspire greatness in our community. We try and get people to uplift themselves. And this is pretty much what you're doing every day. And I take my hat off to you. This is a fantastic organization that you have here. So every single day, we try to inspire greatness. We want people to feel that they are part of something bigger than themselves. They're not just doing a job. They're on a mission together with us to become the largest beauty salon chain in the world, which is our ultimate objective. And they're on the journey with us. People say, how do you motivate so many people? No, I say, I don't motivate anybody. People need to motivate themselves. But what we can do is we can try and inspire people to motivate themselves. And that's what we try and do. We make our guests feel good about themselves. And then we talk about building community. Sorry, can I get some water, please? Sorry. Excuse me, every time I cough, the whole place is... So we talk about building community and all of the stuff I was talking about just before this, and the relationships in the workplace, whether it's racial, cultural, religious, it doesn't really matter. But if we can't build a strong community of all the people that are working in that environment, we'll never be able to satisfy the needs of our guests, because the people will be more focused on each other than on serving the guest. So we have to work very hard to get this whole thing of respect and tolerance and acceptance of people that are different to you, that have now all come together in one workplace, and you have to have a common objective and a common thread, which is to serve people. And I think to myself sometimes, you know, when Madiba came out of prison and he spoke about the Rainbow Nation, we were all so excited and we thought, this is it, this is what we've been waiting for, the Rainbow Nation. Well, sadly, that rainbow kind of disappeared in the mist, and now it's hardly visible, and we have something else completely in its place. But I say to our people, if we can't build, thank you very much, if we can't build a rainbow nation, why can't we build a rainbow community in Sorbet? Why can't we show the rest of the country what could have been done if we just had a bit more tolerance and respect and dignity towards each other in this country? And that's what we work hard on. And sometimes our people say, but what's this got to do with beauty, you know, and beauty salons? It's got everything to do with beauty salons. Because one of those lessons I learned is you cannot ignore the socio-political environment in which you are living, because it's going to impact on your workplace. And if you don't think it is, you're being naive. You need to catch a wake up and say, hey, we're living in this country and look what's going on out there. Racism right now is probably worse than it has been for 20 years. And what are we doing about that? Not only within the workplace, but our guests of you know, all different race groups. We still get the odd one, you know, coming and say, I'd prefer to have a white therapist. And then we'd say, well, we'd prefer that you leave. We don't have that. I mean, when I started this thing, there's a company called Dermalogica that we buy products from. The ladies here will know that product, I'm sure. Sorry. So when I started out in 2004, I was just getting going with Sorbet. They invited me to one of their functions, launch functions. I went there. It was very nice, very smart, and I felt quite cool, although I was about 25 years older than anyone else and of the wrong sex. But other than that, I felt very comfortable there. But what I noticed is that all the people were white. And I'd come from environments all my working life. I had worked with black people, so now all the white people. So I went up to one of the managers and I said, listen, you know, we're the blacks. Was there like a transport problem? Or what? Maybe a taxi strike or something. They said, no, it's, well, you know what? This Dermalogica product is an upmarket range, and the people that are using it are predominantly white people, and they apparently prefer to have white therapists. So I said, really? Well, you know, if we can get Sorbet off the ground, we will change that. If it's the last thing we ever do, we will be representative of the country in which we live. And I'm very proud to say, you know, 12 years later, that 95% of our staff are black today. And we are. So, building community is critical in any business. You need to get people to understand the importance of these relationships that are impacted by the socio-political environment in which we are living today. So there we go. Accepting, respecting, and tolerating those that are different to us. That's just one of our stores and the stuff there. And then, of course, we have this concept called servant leadership. If it's going on too long, just throw something in. Whatever, chase me out, no problem. Been chased out before. So it won't be the first time. So servant leadership is our sort of style of management. And as we know, the traditional South African management style, particularly coming through the apartheid years, was a very, very strong top-down, controlling environment where people were, I'm the boss, and I'll tell you what to do and how to do it and when to do it, and I control your life, I control your destiny. I'll tell you when you can get your next salary increase, I'll tell you when you can go on leave, I'll tell you everything. You belong to me, you work for me. And that whole style of management hasn't done much to improve the working environment, unfortunately. So we decided to do something else. So if you look at a typical organizational style, you have the big boss, you have your subservient staff member, and then you have the unhappy customer. And the reason why the customer is unhappy is that because the staff member is so subservient to the boss that all they ever want to do is try and keep the boss happy. So they are busy, groveling all day long to keep the boss happy, and as a result, what part of the anatomy is facing the customer? And that is exactly what is happening in the world of business in South Africa. So we decided to turn that around a little bit, and so we have leaders who serve the staff, who serve the customers. So it's about serving the people who are serving the people. And that is really a style of leadership that we very strongly believe in. And like, how do we do that? I think we do that through obviously paying people a reasonable salary, but more importantly, giving them the tools and the equipment that they need, giving them the training and the development that they need, and giving them the help and support that they need when they need it on a personal level, and getting to know the staff, getting to understand what their home lives are, where do they come from, how long do they travel, what time are they getting up in the morning. Understand all that stuff so you can relate to somebody that comes late in the morning even though she's tried really hard to get there on time. So it's those kind of things. That's what servant leadership is about. It's not about holding people down and controlling them. It's more about lifting people up and then serving them in that way. So if serving is beneath you, then leadership is beyond you. Yeah, so I think you need to just take that into account. And the great leaders of our time, the great icons of our time, people like Mahatma Gandhi and Nelson Mandela, they were the great servant leaders of our world because they were there to serve the people as opposed to being served by the people. And I think that's what you need to do in your business. If you can see yourself as a person who's going to serve others rather than be served by them, then you have a good chance. And then, of course, passionate service. We ask, what is the purpose of work? Most people will say, well, to make money, to make a living. 95% of people will say something about me. I will make a living. I will improve my life. I. We have a special name for those people. We call them I specialists. They specialize in themselves. They're very good at doing everything for their own benefit. And of course, that is completely wrong because you don't come to work to make money. You come to work to serve people. And if you serve them well, you'll make money. So service must always come before reward. If you put the reward before the service, well, it's not going to work too well. So attitude and service is really good. Sometimes I walk into some of these big, supermarkets, and I just don't see those cashiers ever smile. It's quite sad, really. I mean, I walk, I get moved by that to the point where I actually ask them, what's wrong? And you can see she's looking at me and saying, look at this smart Alec. What do you mean? What do you mean, what's wrong? I say, well, are you happy? He says, of course, can't you see? Well, if you're happy, tell your face. Let your face be happy, for God's sake. Because then I can see. Anyway, so attitude is really what the key is. The positive attitude of our staff, together with the service that we provide, we truly believe has been our biggest single competitive advantage since we've started this business. And then there's the cost of losing a guest. So we work out that the average guest spends about 6,000 Rand per annum. Over 5 years, it comes to 30,000, and that's a lot of money. But people don't think about 5 years' time, and this is something that you guys really need to work on. That it's not about today or tomorrow or next week. We're in business for a period of time. When I started this company, I gave myself 15 years to try and build a brand. So we've been going for 12 years. We're not there yet. And the only reason I gave myself only 15 years was because I was already 51 when I started. So I just wanted to make sure I was still alive when the thing came to a head. So 15 years, but I think we don't look at it. We look at everything from a short-term point of view instead of long. So and we just can't afford to lose a single guest, basically. So if somebody comes into the store and she says, hi, my name is Mary, I'm here for my facial at 12 o'clock. You say, hi Mary, nice, just let me check on the screen. There's no Mary on the screen. She doesn't have an appointment. But she's in the store, and she's standing there. And she's looking at you with an expectant face. What are you going to do? So we have this complaint thing. There's 3 things that you have to do. Okay, the first thing is apologize. It doesn't matter who's wrong. No one cares who's right or wrong. You don't say to her, are you sure your name is Mary? Are you in the right place? Are you in the right town? Did you call this morning? And don't lie, because I've been here the whole time. Were you ever abused as a child? That you come in here and you're telling stories about appointments. So we teach them, they can't argue. They're not allowed to argue at all. Ever, ever, ever. Nobody ever won an argument with a customer. Because even if you win, you lose. All she's got to do is walk out and take the 30,000 with her, and then we have a little ritual for that. We get all the people together to stand by the door. We bow our heads in shame, and we raise our right hand, and then we wave goodbye to the 30,000. Because somebody wanted to argue with the guest. And then we have this thing called company policy. Well, don't ever have a company policy, because it's anti-customer. It's pro-company and anti-customer. So we're getting to the end, so I'm just going to talk about one last little story. So I went to Edgar's with my wife. We had been recently married about 2.5 years ago. What are you looking at? I don't look like a newlywed. Anyway, we went there, and she had bought a pair of shoes, and we were going to take it back for a refund. And because I'm so obsessed with service, I wanted to make sure that everything went smoothly. And we went in there, and we found the right place. It said customer service as well. We thought we had found the right place. It's customer services on the wall, and we give the shoes, and we've got the box. We've got the original box. We've got that all-important life and death slip. The thing that no slip, no life. You're finished without a slip. And we've got everything we need, and we go and we take it back, and there's a young gentleman behind the counter, and we say, please, can we get a refund? He says, sure, and he's busy working away, and I'm watching him. Slowly, his fingers start slowing down, and the facial expression changes, and I say, okay, what's wrong? He says, I'm sorry, sir, there's a problem here. When you bought the shoes, they were 1,200 rand. But subsequently, they marked those shoes down to 800. And the system won't allow me to give you the refund for 1,200, only 800. I said, are you joking? He said, I'm not allowed to joke, sir. No. I said, you can't be serious. I said, okay, well, if that's the case, then I want you to bring me a step ladder. And he says, why would you want a step ladder, sir? I said, I'll tell you why, because I'm going to take the step ladder, I'm going to put it up against the wall, you're going to climb up, I'm going to hold it, and you're going to take the sign down. Because it's the wrong sign. You've got customer services there. There is no customer service going on here at all. And the good news is, while you're bringing the sign down, I'm going to write a new one for you that you can put up there. It says, system problems. Come here if you want to see a system problem. And then we can make your life miserable here. So now he's starting to get a bit twitchy, this guy, and he's not comfortable anymore. He goes to find the supervisor. Supervisor comes back and makes the fatal error. Fatal. He says, it's company policy, sir. I said, what? Who wrote the policy? I asked. He says, it's a big company. It's a big company. I have no idea who wrote the policy. I said, well, take care, I've got time. Go and find him. I don't know where to look for him, sir. I said, I want to meet the man who wrote the policy that says that the system is more important than the customer. At that stage, he broke down. And he gave me a gift card for 400 rand to try and resolve the thing, which was better than nothing, and we moved on. So please, what's your company policies? So my daughter went into Zara, and she took a pair of pants. She bought a pair of pants. She tried them on. Okay, all good. But when she got home, you know what women are like. There was a little bit of a problem here and there. Didn't look so good at home. So she went back. She said, I want to change the size. I don't want a refund. I'm very happy with the pants. I just want to change the size. They said, no. So they said, did you try them on? She said, yes, guilty as charged. He said, I'm sorry, we can't change you. So she was furious. She said, I want to speak to the manager. She said, and this is my daughter that works for us. She's our group marketing manager. So she's very involved in marketing and stuff. And in fact, all the marketing and the branding that you see comes from her. And she was really angry, and she said, no, you know, at Sorbet, we would never, ever ask questions like this. So nevertheless, they go into the back. They come back not with the manager, but with a big black book. And the guy says to her, you know what? You can write your complaint in the book. She said, come, I want to tell you something. Come. She said, I want to tell you what you can do with your book. There's a place I know that you can shove it. And I'm going home, and I'm never coming back here as long as I live, and I'm going to tell every person that I've ever met not to come here. So she was so upset. She went home, and she wrote the Sorbet return policy, which goes like this. It's called our no rules return policy. So you've changed your mind, that's okay. We still love you. Bring it back, no fuss, no slip, no ID, no passport, or your unabridged birth certificate, or your mother's marriage documents. Even if it's empty, damaged, half used, it's not your vibe anymore, or you just need the money for movies instead. Or the packaging clashes with your bathroom. Or you're just plain old made a terrible mistake. Bring back anything, especially your business. So we came to a fork in the road. It was just kind of sitting there. I love that slide. It's a great slide. So we had to make a call. I'm running out of time. So we decided to go to the UK. That's one of our stores in London. And it looks like that inside. And we come to success. And I think it's important that you understand the meaning of success. So when I was young, at 22 years old, I thought success was about money and power and influence and lifestyle. Now, a little bit later with the gray hair, it's about making a difference in other people's lives. And I think that's what it is, because as soon as you make that change, as soon as you stop focusing on the money and you focus on serving others and making a difference in other people's lives, your life will change. So there's the family there. The only guy who's not family, he's clearly not my son on the right there. That's Rudy Rudolph, my partner, but the rest is all family. My three children, Brent, Jade and Courtney. Brent and Jade are twins. Brent runs the operations side, Jade is group marketing manager, and Courtney is the brand manager. The lady in the middle is my niece. She's the buyer for the group. And then I wrote this book called Get That Feeling, and that's about it. Thank you very much for your time.